you're making margaritas with it.
Yeah, that, in my opinion, that's like casting pearls before swine in a way. You don't need to, in a margarita, there's so many other flavors going on there that you don't need. Reposado tequila, you could actually make, 1800 Reposado makes a good tequila, a good margarita. Mm-hmm. But you don't have to go, what's the super high, añejo.
Añejo.
You don't have to go añejo. You know, tequila heads will sip on añejo and it'll be delicious. But you don't need to do that for a margarita. Your other ingredients are very important there too. Another really, really important thing, James, is you're making a margarita, don't use roses. Get a lime for 50 cents and squeeze it yourself. It's worth it. Absolutely.
Now, that's what I always do too, okay? And I'm not a salt on the rim guy, but that's just a personal taste. I like to squeeze the lime myself. I will tell you, we went out to a New Orleans restaurant, Gulf Shores in St. Louis. You haven't tried it. It's wonderful. And they had, used to be $3, now it's $4 margarita night with inflation, okay? And they basically, it's tequila, tequila and Rose's lime is what it is. That's it, on ice. And I thought, oh my. But they did use, you know, not the mix out of the powdered mix that you buy it from the food service guy. It was very good. So good I had two.
Huh.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
I'll have to try that then.
Yeah,
okay.
I mean, he just took them, just the two things, and just glug, 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 and the grab of ice, shook it, put a lime on it, and said, here you go, and here you go.
He did shake it?
Stirred it. He didn't shake it. He stirred it.
Because Roses doesn't have any pulp in it. And
correct.
So you can get away. That's why a gimlet is actually, going back to the gimlet, is actually unique in that it's a stirred drink, not a shaken drink. Well, the reason for that is because Roses is, all of the pulp is taken out of that. And so people will just stir it because there's no reason in incorporating the juice because it's pulpless, I guess.
And briefly, very briefly, tell when a drink should be shaken and when it should be stirred.
Well, I normally just go, if it has citrus juice in it,
mm-hmm.
you shake it.
Right.
So that would be this drink here, the MaiTai, a daiquiri, margarita. Those would be shaken.
Mm-hmm.
But something that would typically just be maybe just booze and maybe a syrup or something like that would typically be stirred. That would be Manhattan, old-fashioned, martini. That would typically be stirred.
So when James Bond says vodka martini, shaken, not stirred, in essence, that's heresy.
Yeah, you don't do that. I don't understand what Fleming was thinking when he said that.
I've had shaken martinis. I tell you what it does. It's very cold, but it's cloudy. And a martini shouldn't be cloudy. It should be clear.
Now, there used to be a school of bartending where, and I'm sorry, this is a very visual thing, but the bartender would hold his shaker such that it's parallel to the ground, and he would just go in a circular motion,
mm-hmm.
almost like he's stirring it.
Right.
But it's in a shaker,
mm-hmm.
and so maybe that's what he meant, because just straight up shaking and clanging around all that ice
mm-hmm.
with a martini, I don't know if that would change the flavor of it at all, but I like the clarity.
You
of
lose
the martini.
you lose the clarity.
I like the clarity. And it's gone. It's too cloudy. Mm. All that stuff. There's bubbles in there now.
Yeah, but it's James Bond.
Did it taste different?
It was colder, but again, it part of the allure to a cocktail to me is the presentation, the glass it's served in, the garnish you put on it. Half of it is just what it looks like, and this wasn't clear. Mm-hmm. I thought, okay, this thing's not even clear. What's the deal? Whereas if you stir it, though, you can stir. If you stir it long enough with enough ice, it's going to get just as cold as shaken.
It's supposed to be.
Yeah, without the shards of ice and everything else.
Mm-hmm.
So, but shaken, not stirred is not necessarily what you want to do. And by the way, there is no such thing as a vodka martini. In fact, in the first Bond novel, Casino Royale, Bond did not ask for a vodka martini. He asked for...
Well, it was a Vesper.
A kangaroo.
Oh.
That's a vodka martini, a kangaroo. Vesper's a little different.
Well, I thought he made it with Gordon's and vodka.
No, that was a Vesper, yes.
Okay.
But when in Casino Royale, When Bond asked for, he didn't ask for a vodka martini shaken not stirred. He asked for a kangaroo, which is a vodka martini. A vodka martini is an oxymoron. Martini's made with gin, period. A Vesper is a different drink, right?
Right. A Vesper would have vodka. I don't understand why they would even put vodka in it. I don't understand vodka in general. The point of vodka is that it doesn't taste like anything.
Right.
Grey Goose is expensive because it tastes like water. Just drink water.
Yeah, I've never understood that. And the new thing is, why we have infused vodka.
They've been making that for...
I think that's called gin.
Yeah. Yeah, I think Kettle One has a botanic-infused vodka.
Yeah, that's gin.
And I'm like, come on, guys. This is the Dutch that make that, isn't it? Is Kettle One Dutch? They've been making gin longer than anybody.
Kettle One, I think, is Polish.
Polish.
I think it is.
Okay.
Maybe not. Let me keep talking. I'll Google that and find out.
But I actually... So when I was in college, I drank my share of gin and tonics. And then I graduated from college, had a buck or two in my pocket, and I realized I do not like gin and tonics anymore. I'm going to buy something else. And I didn't drink gin for probably a decade. And I asked my friend, he was drinking gin martini, I think. And I said, gosh, I just don't like gin. And he says, why not? And I said, well, it gives me a hangover. So what kind of gin are you drinking? I'm like, well, whatever is at the knees of the bartender. Okay, don't drink that. And what did you drink it in? Well, gin and tonic. It's like, well, tonic water has a ton of sugar in it. Mm-hmm. Sugar leads to hangovers. Mm-hmm. Maybe it's the gin and tonic that you don't like, not the gin itself. And so I gave it a shot. I got a bottle of Gordon's. Got a bottle of good vermouth, good dry vermouth, and made myself a martini, and I haven't looked back. I was wrong. Gin is delicious.
It is, if you buy the right kind of gin.
Sure.
By the way, Kettle One, the classic Netherlands-made vodka. So you were right.
Yeah.
I was wrong. Maybe it's Boulevard. I forget. There's another one that's Polish.
Okay.
And Grey Goose is French, I want to say.
Well, Grey Goose is vodka.
Right?
Yeah. Oh, we were talking about vodka. Not gin.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, right. Grey Goose is French.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, if you buy the crappy gin, not good. If you buy the good gin, I personally like either Bombay Sapphire or Beefeater. I've had other gins. The craft gins are good. There's other gins. There's a gin called Uncle Val's. It's a true botanical gin. It's wonderful for gin and tonic. If I'm going to make something like a aviation, I'm going to use probably Beefeater. It's a good, clean gin that's not going to give you a hangover unless you drink 6.
Anything will give you a hangover if you drink 6 of them.
Sure.
But yeah, gin is interesting because whenever I hear people say they don't like gin, I kind of ask them a follow-up question, which is, which gin have you had? And it's not really a question of quality. A lot of times they've had nice gin, mm-hmm. Bombay Sapphire, mm-hmm. Beefeater, Gordon's, whatever. But gin is weird because gin can be a lot of different things.
Well, I can understand why someone doesn't like gin also. I mean, it's a true London dry gin is infused with juniper berries.
But not all gins are London dry gins.
That's correct. To me, the best gins are London dry. To me.
I agree.
Sometimes. If I want to make a martini, I'm going to use a London dry. If I'm going to make a gin and tonic, I'm probably going to want a London dry, except for when I just want something different, like a botanical gin, like an Uncle Val's. So,
right. Mm-hmm.
So this is what I like, except for when I don't.
And that's the way they all are, really. I mean, I don't typically go to gin as my go-to spirit, but I typically go with whiskey or rum. And, people say, what kind of whiskey do you like? I say, I like good whiskey. That's what I like. I like bottled and bonded good whiskey.
What is your favorite whiskey drink?
Old-fashioned. I go old-fashioned, but when the mood strikes, a Manhattan.
Now, do you like Manhattan with bourbon or with rye?
I prefer bourbon. I'm sorry, I prefer rye. Mm-hmm. If somebody gave me a bourbon one, I wouldn't turn it away at all. Mm-hmm. I enjoy those two. A lot of that has to do with the vermouth that you're using with it. Use good vermouth. Use high proof whiskey, and you can't really screw it up. It's a simple. recipe.
It's not complicated like the MaiTai. It's now different people fool with the different percentages. I like 2-to-1. Rittenhouse rye is what I like. 2-to-1 Rittenhouse rye to sweet vermouth, and a couple shakes of bitters in there, and a not a maraschino cherry, the brand that I use. What the heck is it called?
Luxardo, right?
Luxardo. Yep. Thank you. That's the original maraschino cherry. Luxardo.
Do you like it up
cherry.
or on the rocks?
I like it on the rocks. If I have it up, here's why. Because that's a high alcohol drink. And if you drink it up, you almost have to drink it fast, because when it starts to get warm, I don't like it so much.
Well, that's why you make them at home, so you can drink them fast, right?
Well, the thing is if I'm going to have a Manhattan, I'm going to have one, maybe two. If I have three, I'm toast, and I don't want to be toast.
A good Manhattan is delicious. The important part is to use it doesn't have to be bonded. I don't exactly know when we're talking a bonded whiskey, there's a lot of minutia that goes into that I'm not familiar enough with. But a really important part is that it's 100 proof. Your typical whiskey, or really any spirit, is going to be 80. 80 proof, meaning just take that number, put it over 2, 40% alcohol. 100 proof, 50%. It's going to burn a little bit more if you just drink it out of the bottle.
Rittenhouse rye, bottled and bond, 100 proof. That's what I use.
Rittenhouse is good stuff.
And it's not expensive. $20 a bottle.
Yeah, it seems like the market is going to catch up with it any time now and make it expensive.
I would think so, because it's good stuff.
It's a better kept secret than I would assume, because it is good stuff.
It is.
I have a bottle of wild turkey rye at the house. It's okay. I prefer Rittenhouse myself, but you can kind of try different things. Whiskey's weird because you could have different grains in there that make it taste a little bit different.
Now, Templeton is another one, and Templeton is made with more rye than Rittenhouse. So you would think it would have a spicier flavor, but it doesn't. I think Templeton is good, but I think it's overrated. Rittenhouse is just the best. I've tried lots of other ryes, and there's just none better to me. At double the cost, it's not better to me. You mentioned old fashioned, though. You make a very good old fashioned, differently than I do. Tell me what you put in your old fashioned.
Very simple. Just 2 ounces of bonded whiskey. I like Old Grandad bottled and bond. You can get a bottle of that at really any liquor store for $17, $18. High proof spirit. A splash of simple syrup, maybe a half an ounce. You peel an orange. The important part in that is the orange peel. Make sure you express the oils from the orange and put it over ice. Stir it. You stir it in the glass. You don't have to use a mixing.
You don't have to muddle it and all that other stuff.
Nah.
Yeah, muddling it turns into too much work. If it drinks too much work, I'm not going to do it. If it drinks too much work, I'm going to go to a bar or ask you to make it for me.
The old fashioned is my go-to cocktail. If I feel a little fancier, my son's asleep, my wife and I are watching a movie, I can take 4 minutes out of my day to get out the ingredients and stir myself up an old fashioned. No fuss, simple, no more dishes than I would have before. And they're just so good. In the summer, maybe not so much, but if it's nice and cool outside, something that, warms my soul, I go for that.
Maybe I'm saving the best till last, or the most obvious till last. We touched on gin, but your favorite gin drink is?
The martini.
Yeah, I figured that it was.
I like martinis.
I do too. It's just that they're to be. I know a guy who says a martini is meant to be drunk with purpose, and that's about the way to describe it. But if I drink 2 martinis with purpose, or with dispatch, he says, if I drink 2 martinis with dispatch, I'm not going to be carrying on an intelligent conversation that evening.
Well, there's only alcohol in a martini.
Yeah.
People mess with which alcohols, which, modifiers, but there's just alcohol in it. It's kind of like a Manhattan, I guess.
Right.
They drink a lot more quickly than a Manhattan, in my opinion. I think it's because it's not a very flavorful drink. I love them, but there's you don't have to think about it too much. It kind of falls into the back of your mouth and you swallow it.
The thing